Okay, so I can't see if anybody's here yet, but I am starting the stream a little bit early just to make sure that everybody is getting in before we start. Welcome, everybody, if you are in here already. And yeah, we are going to wait until the start of 4 o'clock before we get started. See, Anna's here. Hello, Anna. How are you? Hope everybody is having a great week. In America, we just had Thanksgiving yesterday, so that was fun. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving if you celebrated. And if you didn't, hope you had a great week. Hope your weekend is going to be just as much fun. Um, this week we're going to be talking about dictionaries and other basic tools. Other basic tools include other forms of resource creation for your communities or for your languages. So I'm gonna wait another minute here. Twitch streamer? I am not a Twitch streamer. I do have a friend who wants to do Twitch streaming with her, so maybe in the future, but not currently. But it is very nice of you to say. I appreciate it. Okay, so it is 4 o'clock. It looks like we only have about 4 people in the group as from what I'm seeing. So I don't really want to start with just 4 people, but I'm assuming that it's delayed, so I'm going to get started. Um, Remember that if you are coming late, you can rewatch these videos as well and always get good. Um, you can always pause the videos as well and always reuse these videos. So to get started, welcome to the workshop 7 for the LDTC ELP webinar series. This week we're going to be doing dictionaries and other basic tools. So like I said a little while ago before more people started coming in, uh, these dictionaries and other basic tools, we're going to talk about specifically a dictionary creation tool, as well as other options that may work better for you, maybe not, as well as resource creation for books and other like pamphlets, other sort of material culture. So the first question, why should we make a dictionary, right? Why is a dictionary better than just a word list? A dictionary, or sometimes called a lexicon, depending on who you're talking to, it can be used for a community member, and it can be used for non-community members. So it can be useful for the community in terms of simply being able to reference something, right? Being able to reference example sentences, as we'll see, it can be very, very useful for language learning. Pedagogy for uses in the classroom. So if community members in a classroom would be able to use this, which is actually very, very important for language revitalization if that's something that you need to be worried about. Um, just got a notification. Um, Looks like we have somebody who's trying to get in, but yes. So for non-community members, a dictionary can be very helpful because it might be the only thing that we might see from your language um, when there's so little resources available. And a dictionary is a very good source for a researcher to get started. Um, uh, yeah, so that's the useful for linguists and other scholars who want to work with speakers of a language. But that's also good for comparison studies. Maybe you want to compare a language to another language. Maybe you're not even going to be able to get to the country to be able to study. So for instance, I'm working on a paper right now that's comparing the language Hmong and Thai. So for using dictionaries for that could be beneficial for certain example sentences or certain morphology or the definitions that you're giving for the morphology. Um, and a dictionary adds prestige to a language. It can help the speakers of a language feel proud of their language, feel proud of their culture. They have something material. Now, this isn't always the case. Some communities may choose not even to have an orthography. That's a community decision. We can't really make that decision for them. But uh, by and large, having materials in your language often adds some prestige. A it changes the mindset of a person's language from just being a kind of dialect to full-fledged language with a dictionary. It just makes it very robust. It's it just adds that prestige, as we said. Um, so now, what are some different types of dictionaries? The ones that English speakers are most aware of are alphabetic, excuse me. Words are presented in alphabetical order. So these are languages with anything that has a letter to a sound association or anything that turns its listing of symbols as an alphabet. So these are languages like English. Thai has an alphabet. Russian has an alphabet, and etc. Another form of dictionary could be the root. Uh, so the root of a word in Semitic languages, being Arabic, Hebrew, and so forth, um, they have this special form of morphology that has a special pattern. And there's groupings based on the roots of those words rather than the alphabetic system. I know that's a little complicated, not being able to see like an example, but for our purpose, that's what we have. Um, and then this, yeah. So here's one example. So in Arabic, the root, we have these three different letters. So there's the A with the palatal. Uh, these are just diacritics. If you're not working in this language, you don't necessarily need to know these. But so this is the pattern. So it's A, L, M. Now you see with all these examples, it goes A, L, M, and we're adding things in between. You see that? So now these words are all going to be grouped together based on this root, right? So you wouldn't think that these would be in order together because A starting with an A, starting with an M, starting with an I, but because it's a different type of dictionary, different kinds of organization. Um, yes. And then another type is thematic. So words are grouped by their subject area. Not necessarily meaning, but subject area. This can have different connotations. So some good sides of this, it can be compiled in less time. We can kind of just, when we speak to our community members, we can just say, hey, what's a grouping of words based around maybe what are metal objects, for instance. Um, Now, you the bright side of that is you can get it compiled in less time, but as we see at the bottom here, it's not as easy to search, right? Because first we would have to search the theme, and then we would have to search if there's a second sub-theme or if maybe the second part of that is alphabetized. It adds more complexity to what your readers are going to be having to go through, essentially. Um, so that's something to keep in mind with thematic dictionary. They can be tailored to community interests. So, for instance, we had a talk on biodiversity in linguistics, and that could be a major topic that the community members want to really emphasize is the biodiversity of their language and the traits that their language brings to biodiversity. Um, yes, so some words actually lack uh, thematic like theme. There's no true real meaning. I thought I had example of this, maybe in a next slide. But words like bully and jinx, we can't really group them into anything. So where do we put them, right? That's the question we need to ask. Is do we just create a miscellaneous grouping, or is there a more robust way to do this? So these are things you have to consider when you're determining what type of dictionary you're going to create. Sorry about that. So the first parts of a dictionary. So if we've seen a dictionary, an English dictionary at least, is what I'll be using as an example. So the head word is just going to be the first part of the entry, the most simplified form of the word. So no morphology, no prefixes or affixes or suffixes or infixes. So nothing at the beginning or the end or the middle added in from that base form. We just want the base. So then we can put all the other stuff underneath that. It's sort of how we categorize stuff. Uh, you will have to think about your pronunciation. If your language has an orthography that doesn't already give the pronunciation, you may want to use IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. That's what linguists most often use now. It's not always used in linguistics. There are still some other conventions that people use. Um, and then, but for some languages like Hmong has something called RPA. RPA is the orthography that they use, and it is completely phonetic, so there's no need to use IPA or any other phonetic alphabet. You can just use just normal orthography that they use. So parts of speech is another part of the dictionary that we need to include. So we need to include whether it's a noun, a verb, an adjective, a classifier, if your language has classifiers, um, different forms of tense, if you have tense, um, and then adding an example sentence. I highly recommend you add example sentences as much as you can. Um, More for the sense that the more sentences we create, the better for the language, in my opinion. Uh, but for new language learners who are looking at your dictionary hoping to learn a language, they're going to want some examples to put things into context. Context is a big, big, big part of language. So we want to make sure that we're including that context as often as we can. So and then, of course, you want the actual translations. And this can include as many languages as you want. You can do, uh, so if I was doing a Hmong dictionary, I could do Hmong to English, I could do Hmong to Thai, I could do Hmong to English to Thai. You see how you can just keep adding on. So some things to watch out for, homophony. Things that are clearly related, homophonous, yet parts of speech, or sometimes even the same parts of speech. So things to watch out for. So these are examples in English. So a crow, the noun, the bird, a crow, and versus to crow. So these are two different parts of speech, you see. So one's a noun, one's a verb. So you would want to create two different uh, entries, or you would want to subcategorize, make one the main part and then have another form underneath. It depends on how you want to put together your dictionary. I would recommend doing it separately, but yes. And then same thing here. So Google, the actual website, the noun, and to Google. So I'm Googling something, so the verb. Um, and then there are divisions based on grammatical properties. So is it intransitive? Is it transitive? Is it ditransitive? Does it take two objects in its after the verb or before the verb, depending? And how do you show this? So this isn't so much what people who are just getting started need to be worried about, but it's something to consider, definitely. And then some other things to watch out for. Multiple senses or definitions of our words. So with impress, the verb, we have to press a thing into another thing. To affect deeply in mind or feelings. So very different very, very different. One's completely in the mind, one is completely physical. To fix or fact to fix ideas or facts firmly in memory. So we have another mental semantic meaning here. To urge, to impose a quality or characteristic on something. And then even archaic forms, so an old form of English that isn't necessarily used so much anymore, but to force into service on a seafaring vessel. These historic forms are actually very important too. We wouldn't really expect them necessarily for the current language users, but for researchers and anybody in the future who wants to look at this language, doing comparison studies, like I said before, you could uh, look at these archaic forms and see if there's any similarities. Maybe there's a generational similarity between this one language family and another language family. That can lead to so many more questions. So there's a lot to go into it. So don't get too overwhelmed, but just know that there are a lot of options, is what I really want to try and stress here, and things to just kind of watch out for. Um, Now, suppletion. So in English, go and went are part of the same technical verb, but different tenses. So for this, would we want to use two entries or would we just want one? That's a real question. Um, a lot of English dictionaries will put the conjugated forms underneath the main form, but not always. It depends on what you choose to do, what's best for your language and your communities that you're working with. So in ancient Greek, I'm not really happy with this example. So if we have other examples of this action in your language, please share. Would love to hear about it. Um, I don't know this pronunciation for these. I apologize. But so in ancient Greek, we have one, two, three, four, five, six different forms of the verb. So would we want one entry or six? These are questions we need to try and consider. Oh, this is just a duplicate slide. Sorry about that. But this is where my bully or jinx example was. Sorry about that. I'll be deleting that before we upload these. Okay, now we got the base form of our dictionary. We know what type we want to use and what parts we want to put into our dictionary. How do we create it? Where do we start, right? So we have some options. There are a lot of free options for dictionary creation. Um, Both of these and a lot of the other programs that I'm going to be showing you are coming from SIL. I believe it's a Christian uh, funded program, though somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. Um, and they have many, many, many options for language documentation, specifically for non-linguists, which is what we're going to see today with We Say. So We Say, it's easy to get started. It's simple. It's pretty straightforward, as we'll see. With Flex, it's going to get a little bit more complicated. This is more geared towards linguists doing grammar analysis. Um, but the good part is these two programs are very, very easy to work between. So you can bring files from WeSay to Flex or Flex to WeSay, if I'm not mistaken. Um, oh, I just saw a question that Heather asked. Yes, WeSay can be integrated with Flex. I believe it can go that way. I know it can go one way. I know Flex can go into WeSay and WeSay can go into Flex. But yes. So why would Flex might be a better choice for a linguist rather than a community member? So what Flex is able to do, it's a little bit more powerful of a software. So you're able to do complete texts in Flex, which you aren't able to do in WeSay. So Flex does both dictionary and text translations. So if I just put in a interview, I can completely gloss an interview in Flex. And what's really fancy about Flex is all of the words that I've already put into my dictionary in Flex will auto-populate the words in my text. So when I put in a new interview, all those words, all that work that I've already put into that dictionary, I don't have to rewrite it. It just goes right in. Super easy, super fast. Now it is a little bit more complicated. It is a little bit more finicky than we say. That's why I'm not going to demonstrate flex here, but it is another option if that's the way you want to go. So to get started with we say, we're going to download. I have all these links at the very end of the presentation, along with forum links for forums to get help with WeSay and training videos for Flex, if you so choose, as well as the other programs that we're going to take a look at. So the first thing you're going to do when you open WeSay is the configuration tool is going to get opened up. Um, so this is how we create our project. So we're going to create a new blank project. You're going to click on this. This will pop up. You're going to click choose language, and you're going to look for the language that you're trying to work on. Now, I believe you need an ISO code before you were able to work in WeSay. Um, at least that's what I'm seeing here. I haven't been able to check if there is a way that you're able to manually put it in. Though, as we said earlier, ISO codes are pretty well used now. Most, not all, but a lot of languages use ISO codes already. So your language might already have an ISO code. So this might not even be an issue. Um, and once we uh, finish that, we find our language. So for this example, I did Hmong Do, which is just white Hmong. This first tab is the tasks. So we're going to select what we want to enable in our dictionary. We want to select the dictionary browse and edit. All this is the overview. We just want to keep that overview there. We want to add our meanings to our dictionary. We want to add parts of speech. And then we want to add example sentences. There are some others you can also add, but for this example, these don't really pertain to us so much right now, but these are options. And there are descriptions of these made available on the forums as well. Um, Next, so for input systems, I have Mongdao. So we can add, like I said before, if we want to add a pronunciation, if we want to add pronunciation, we can add IPA into the input system. So we can have that as a in between, so we can get the pronunciation guides. But like I said with Mongdo, we don't need that, so I don't have that enabled. And then we can add other languages as well. This is where you would add other languages if you want to translate into more than just English or whatever contact language you might be using, if you're using one. Um, Now fields. So this is the same thing pretty much as the tasks, but this is within the tasks. So we can add our word, the citation form if that's different, the literal meaning if the definition meaning isn't enough, which it may not be. Some words don't necessarily translate into another language perfectly. Um, Semantic domain, so the meaning grouping essentially is what that means. The parts of speech. You can add a picture if you would like, and a gloss. So the gloss is that interlinear text that we talked about before. And you can always have notes for everything. It's very easy to do notes in WeSay. Now for actions. Now remember, this is still just configuring our project. We haven't started actual dictionary yet. This is just, we can change these things anytime we want to. So don't worry about messing anything up. You can try stuff and always go back if we need to. Um, so now for our publishing, we can actually publish in PDF, and I'll show you how to do that. We can export to SMF. This is just a save. This is just a standard format for saving a lexicon. Making a open office document, it essentially goes into Microsoft Word or any other word processor you have. We can export, or we can send and receive on a USB flash drive. And you would click these, make visible in WeSay, make visible in WeSay, if you want to use those later down the line. And like I said, you can always come back to these things, so don't worry if you forget to do one of these. Automatic backups. Now, making an automatic backups is an option. To do this, you would need an SD or USB stick for memory that is permanently inserted into your computer while you're working on your project. So it automatically saves it over and over and over again. Also with WeSay, anytime you close it, the data is automatically synced and saved. So it should not be a problem, but that's another option if you want to be extra careful. Now, the options list, these are your parts of speech. Um, Now you see here, this is what we got automatically, except for the suffix. I actually added that as a test. So we have verb, noun, adverb, adjective, preposition, pronoun, and suffix. Now, say we want to add classifiers. You would just add this new option and put it in. It's just that easy to get a new parts of speech in, which is great. Um, Now creating our dictionary. So now we're actually into it. So when we close down, so this is going to populate in a different location on your computer, okay? So when you are looking for it, just look for the whatever your title of your language or the language name is in your computer, and you should be able to find it. It won't be the configuration tool, it will just say we say. Okay, so you can see I don't have any words in here just yet. I put one in later, but yes. So we have semantic domains, which is essentially just like it's a sort of tool for linguists to get started. We'll see an example of that later on. Um, but we have our dictionary browse and edit. We have our meanings. We have our parts of speech and example sentences. So each of these tabs you can click on and a little window will pop up and you can populate any information you need. So here, so this is the semantic domains as you can see on this tab. So what is this? What is a semantic domain? A semantic domain is essentially just a grouping of words based on their meanings. So similar to thematic, like how we would do a thematic dictionary, though this is more just for getting words, not for organizing the words. So it's a little different. Now you see this drop-down menu. Right now it says one universe creation. This is just a prompt to get people to ask questions for certain types of words. So what words refer to everything we can see? The universe, creation, cosmos, heaven, earth, microcosms, everything else that exists. Now that's a big question. So maybe don't use this one first. There are other prompts in here like floods. Like what words would you use to using heavy rainfall or excessive water? So that's one way. Or body parts on an animal, for instance, on a cat. Like what would you call the whiskers? What would you call the tail? Is a cat's tail different than a dog's tail in terms of what words we're using? These are how you can kind of get at that. So this is we say trying to help out anybody who isn't a linguist to kind of get into documentation work. Um, so now that we have our dictionary, we put in all our words, did all the parts of speech, it's in there, it's good. Now, where do we go? So this is a link for Prince XML. What this does is it converts the HTML files, which are we say files are, into PDF, so it's easily readable. This is a feature that you got to add on later. And when you do download this onto your computer, it'll automatically allow you to go back, actually, sorry, go back to here, and you see here, make simple PDF dictionary. This will have a make visible and we say pop up right here when you download Prince HTML. Go back down, and now we see that our make simple PDF is one click away. Okay, so now all we got to do to make a simple PDF of our entire dictionary is just click this little button and we're all good. That's one form that you can do. You can also populate all of these words into Flex, like I said before, and go from there. So what about other resources? What if we don't need a dictionary? What if there's already a dictionary from previous workers? Um, well, maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to write a pamphlet or a poster or do a calendar. These are very useful for language revitalization. And one good resource for this, also SIL, is Bloom. Let's grow a library, it says. It's free and easy to use, just like we say. Publishing is integrated into the software, so it automatically makes the PDFs instead of having to do what we just did with Prince HTML. Uh, and it offers something called shell books. So there are previously translated books uh, open for us to translate. There are books that are already translated into other languages for other language projects that are made available for us, and we can do the same thing. So these are just some options that we have. So you can make books, the shell version or self-written books, pamphlets or any kind of brochures, posters. You can use videos for Bloom. So if you're doing a sign language, Bloom is actually a very good option for you because you can add videos. Oh, and that's another thing. Bloom is able to electronically publish, so you can have it completely on a website. Um, you can make calendars. So some languages may have a special calendar. So you may want to. So for instance, Miami, the language spoken by the Miami tribe in Oklahoma, they have special words for each part of the seasons. And we started working on a calendar for them. I think I spelled this wrong. Sorry about that. Um, a calendar based on the phases of the moon. Um, and it works right along with their language, and it helps teach their youth about their language, and that's exactly what we're going for. Coloring books that it isn't explicitly said possible in Bloom, but I would think if you take a black and white image, blow it up, put it in, and then a little caption underneath, perfect coloring book. Just a thought, just a little suggestion from me. Now, how do we get started in Bloom? So you download Bloom, and it first asks you to register. As you can see, there's this little prompt, I'm stuck, I'll finish this later. You can do that if you want to, but I believe that this registering is mostly just to kind of understand what you're using it for the Bloom team. So for instance, when I downloaded it and registered, I just said for my organization LDTC, I'm doing a demo. Um, so yeah. So as we see, we have collections. So, so you can search for new sources for shells. This is where you would go down for. And then you can see these three books that I have in my library that I'm working on. So I actually got a book on coronavirus awareness, and you can see that this one was in French and it was translated into English. So what I would do if I spoke French, I would use um, this French translation and translate it into whatever language I'm working on. You can find these books in other source languages as well. It's not all French. Um, you can see this is in the Edit tab, and it goes all the way down. And you can add pages if you'd like. You can add videos into here if you'd like. But yes, super straightforward, very easy to just uh, click in and edit. It's very simple. Now, going down, creating other. Yep. So now we are in the publish. So this is my full book, 15 pages, as you can see. I have a simple version where I can just get it in a normal PDF. I can do just the book cover, and I can do just the booklet inlets if I wanted to. Uh, and I could click on these options, and then I could click print, or I could save PDF to a flash drive or anywhere else, or to the desktop if I wanted to. And then there's this fancy little button here for ePublish. Um, that essentially just makes it possible to publish onto a website if you want. The Bloom Reader is for Android devices only, I believe, so that is something to take consideration. And then sharing on the web, so you can share into that library of shell books that we were so generously able to get. Um, and then here are some links. So here's the We Say. It's a download. Here's a community forum. I couldn't find any links on the website for tutorials done by SIL, um, but with field work, but with the community, it is very, very active. So that you shouldn't have trouble getting the answers that you need. And if you have any trouble, feel free to reach out to us as well. Um, and then Fieldworks. Uh, I just saw something about Max. Yes, Fieldworks does not natively work on Mac, so that is something to consider. Sorry I did not mention that earlier. Thank you for everyone who was mentioning that. Um, so here's a download, and then this is actual help and training videos done by SIL, I believe. At least it's on their website, so it's sponsored by them. And then Prince XML, this should just kind of be a background application on your computer. It doesn't really need to do anything else. Um, it has its own interface if you wanted to use it, but I don't have any use for it, and I work with languages every day, so if you want to use it, go for it, you know? Uh, I don't think there's too much that we can do with it for language specifically, but it's another tool. So sign language dictionary for all our friends who are working in sign languages. This is one option, SOOSL. This is a completely sign language dedicated, from what I can tell. Uh, Video enabled. You can add your gestures, you can add how many hands you're using, you can add where on the face you're touching, and add your videos. So it's that extra layer of documentation work done for sign languages, if that's something that you like really need and will benefit from. Um, and unlike Bloom, using Bloom for sign language dictionary, it SOOL will auto organize it for you, so you don't have to do all that, which is a big time saver. And then Bloom. Bloom, the download to download Bloom, our help forum. This is the community, and then this is our shell library. And thank you for coming to this week of the webinar series. I know I ended a little bit early. Sorry about that. I didn't want to overwhelm you too much because we could do this for another 3 days if we really wanted to going through all the applications and all the nitty-gritty stuff. But I think going back and answering some questions would probably be the most beneficial for everybody. So thank you, mahalo, for coming to this week. Next week is going to be language revitalization also, just so everybody is aware. Now I'm starting to look through some questions. What do when community members don't agree on the orthography, meaning, or function of a word, different towns or regions? That's a good question. See, you're gonna have to work with the community members, naturally, but in this situation, I think maybe saying in the dictionary which regions are saying which words might be beneficial, so then all are represented. Doing that could also lead to just making the dictionary super long, but if that's not an issue, uh, that's one option. Yeah, that's more of a thing I think the community needs to kind of lead on. Um, Even if they aren't in agreement, yeah, it's a very difficult topic to work with. Um, Um, explanation of suppletion. Was it already answered? I don't think so. Okay. So suppletion. Suppletion is essentially a sup sup yeah, I sorry, my pronunciation of this is not great, but suppletion. Um, if I'm not mistaken, it is the uh, use of multiple different verb forms. But it's not conjugation. If somebody else is actually able to answer that, I don't want to give you false information on this. Um, so if we can get some other help with that, I would really appreciate that. Um, we got explanation for ISO code done. It's just three letter. Okay. Oh, Shirley added what suppletion was. Thank you, Shirley. Yes, it is. Good. Okay. Thank you for putting that ISO code table in, Anna. I will put ISO code link into the slides for us as well, just so that's there. Um, are these domains the same list as the SIL word collection list? I believe it's the same list. I know of what you're talking about. I haven't seen the list myself, but I believe they are the same. Um, going on. Yeah, sorry everyone. My spelling is not the greatest. I apologize. So yes, as Heather asked, can we even do this on Mac? It is difficult, but it is possible. Um, so yes, the emulator that Shirley is talking about. I know it works. I've seen people use it. I've seen Shirley use it. Uh, I I would ask Shirley for some help on that, or at least somebody in the community forums for emulators for some help on that. Uh, yes, as Shirley just did. Thank you, Shirley. Um, okay, here's a question. Thank you, Anna. What? Oh, just answered that. When printing dictionaries, can we print only some fields? Leave other lists words that don't come from our community. You can always turn off fields in we say. I don't know. That's a really good question, Heather. Um, yeah, I don't. I think you can turn off the fields. I know that, but I think if you turn off the fields of before you print, I think you might lose some of that data. So if you maybe, for instance, created two projects, for instance, duplicating a project, you could have one where one may be a community-driven dictionary and one may be more research-based dictionary. That's one option. Um, yeah, I would say for everybody here, the best thing for a lot of these software is to create a test program and just try stuff. That's honestly what I do, and it's helped me out this far. So, I think going through it and just trying stuff, seeing what's available for settings, seeing what's available for different options in Flex and we say is going to be the best option for everybody. And if we start running into trouble, definitely reach out to us. I'm not saying don't ask. Please ask us questions. Reach out to those community forums. Um, I'm not getting any. more questions. The last one I see is about a minute ago. So I'm going to wait for a little while to see if we get any more. I hope this was informational for everybody. I hope I didn't talk too fast or made anything more confusing. It's not what I want. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna wait for some more questions. If I don't get any more in the next 5 minutes or so, I think we can call it there. Um, so yeah, again, thank you, mahalo for everybody coming. I'm glad you spent your Friday with us, or Friday our time, uh, Saturday or early Friday, where everybody else is. Yeah. Now remember that next week is going to be language revitalization. So that talk will probably include some of how resources might actually benefit language revitalization and documentation. So be sure to come for that. It's definitely going to be appropriate for right after this. Next week also, we don't have a poster out yet, but we will have a special talk given by a guest lecturer and discussing their language project and everything that they're doing for their language and their community. So be sure to watch out for a poster on that and more descriptions for that. I see another question from Heather. How would we start to develop a community team for a dictionary? Who would be stakeholders? That's a really good question. Who is stakeholder in a language is a big, big topic. Um, First of all, we want to make sure that we are respecting our community members and making sure that it's their language, their decisions. We are there to help facilitate and uh, help where we can um, in terms of actual language growth. Um, Now, in terms of how to develop a community team, often you just got to start asking. Go into the community, see who speaks the language, who is interested in working on the language. These There's not so much a cookie cutter uh, example or anything for it that I can think of. Um, but I know of some professors that I have that work in with different communities. They go and you just gotta try and talk to people. It's the best I can say for inside a community. I don't have too much experience with that. If anybody else has some great advice that they would like to share, please share. Um, okay, so you're one of the insiders. Great. Okay. Well, if you're having trouble finding others to be interested as well, that, yeah, finding out the language attitude around you might be a benefit. So what I mean by that is how is your language thought of in your community? Is it thought of as being endangered? Sometimes, or even if it isn't endangered, does the community around you feel that it needs a dictionary? Sometimes they may not. Um, but to create that team, what I would do in this situation is reach out to who I know speak the language, see if they have any family members who speak the language who might be interested, creating opportunities for them to be a partner, creating opportunities for them to create their own work or any kind of even compensation can be uh, one of the main factors for documentation work sometimes. Nothing wrong with that. Um, so yeah, it's a very case by case basis. I apologize, I can't really speak to your situation specifically, but I hope some of those tips might help. Really sorry if that doesn't. I don't see any more questions. Okay, I think we're gonna call it there then. I hope everybody had a good time here. Hope you guys learned something. If you need any more help, any more questions, please ask in the comments or reach out to us if you need any help. But I hope you all have a great weekend. So, yeah, bye now.